Hey guys, this is Crystal from 31 Threads Quilt Company, and today we are making a stash busting baby quilt. This one to be exact. So grab your scraps and let's make a quilt. Hey, I'm Crystal from 31 Threads Quilt Company. Today we're making a baby quilt from scratch. Recently I made this lap quilt from the Riley Blake Collection Blush and Butterscotch. And I actually sold this as a quilt kit in my online store. And when I packaged it, it was for 12 blocks, 3 of the light pink, 3 of the medium pink, 3 blocks of the butterscotch, and then 3 of the chocolate brown. And when I put it together in the quilt kit, you could just put the blocks in any fashion you wanted. They could be random, or you could do ombre the way I had done this one here. After I put it together, I thought I'm going to use this for a friend who's having a baby this fall, and I wanted to use the same color combination and do the ombre for her. The problem was the fabric sold out pretty quickly, and some of the colors, all I had left was scraps. So I had to get a little creative in the baby quilt that I wanted to make and what I could do with what I had left of some of the fabrics. So here's what I come up with. These are half square triangles, and I have 12 of each color. Now, if you're not using scraps, if you're using cut fabrics, or if you're not using a particular color combination that I have, whatever you're doing, this will work for you to make 12 blocks out of any colors that you want to use with very few fabrics. So for each of these, I have 12 of this color, 12 of this, 12 of this. And so how I did that was I started with 6 pieces of fabric, or 6 squares of the color that were 4.5 by 4.5. So that's not a lot of fabric, and I barely had that for a few of these, but I was able to do that. So 6 squares of this color with 6 squares of this color. And then when I sewed those together to make the half square triangles, I then had 12. And I'm not going to take the time to show you how I made the half square triangles because most of you know how to do that already. I'm just telling you the dimensions and what I made for this. So 6 squares that were 4.5 by 4.5, 6 squares of the background, 4.5 by 4.5. That made 12, and then when I trimmed them to 3.5 inches. A lot of people want to skip that step of trimming, but especially when you're working with half square triangles, it just really makes putting that quilt together so much better, and it just lays so much flatter and your points line up. So I would suggest making it a little larger so that you can trim it down. So these are each 3.5. In addition to this, the only other thing you'll need is you will need 48 additional background squares that these are already trimmed to 3.5 by 3.5. Now this I had plenty of. It was just a few of the colors that had sold out. And so that was not a problem, and that's one of the reasons I chose the pattern that I came up with, was something that had a lot of background in it and not as much of the different colors, so that I could make what I had work with this. So each square will look like this. This is the first one, and this diamond pattern is made from using all half square triangles. Let me remove these just so you can see. All of these are the half square triangles, and I've just laid them in different directions to make this diamond pattern. All I needed was 12 of those, so all I had to have of the color was 6, and that made the 12. And then my background will fill in these 4 corners right here. To make this first square. So I'm going to get this square sewn up, and then as well as the other 12 sewn up, and then I'm going to show you how easy it is to assemble. I wanted to pause for just a second and say, as you're sewing the squares together and putting them into rows, I don't think it's that important that you use pins, but once you get the rows put together and you're going to sew row to row, I do think it's really important to take a second and put some pins in there just so that you can kind of line up these seams. So when I'm doing that, I start with the center seam. I have 3 seams, so I'll start with the center seam and line it up first. And then just work my way out. When I'm lining up the other seams, if I have some fullness in there that I want to try to work out, I'll use more seams. But if they're pretty flat, then just pins on the seams will be enough. But if, for instance, I was off a little bit and this top had a bunch of excess fabric in it, I could use these other pins in there to work the fullness out. So just a little tip there. So I found one that was what I was talking about earlier with some fullness to work in, and I thought it'd be a good time just to stop and show you what I do to work that in. As you can see, this top fabric is fuller than what's on the bottom, so it's not laying flat. So what I would do to help with that is I would start by finding the middle place and trying to divide the fullness between this half and then this half to that seam. And once I did, go ahead and put a pin in the center. And now I would do the same over to the sides. Kind of divide the fullness between them. And I might even put another one right here. And then I would do the same on this side too. Let me go ahead and use this pin just to show you. So now when I'm sewing down through here, yes, I have a lot of pins in there, but I've divided that fullness over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections, and I've even had more pins in that before trying to work that out, and it really will alleviate that fullness and spread it out so that it's really not that obvious. So so yeah, just a little trick. If you do have fullness, you can use pins and work that fullness in. So I just went ahead and sewed from there to there. Haven't finished up yet, but I just wanted to show you that, and I did sew over the pins. If you're going to sew over your pins, you just need to sew really slowly. Try not to let the needle come down right on top of the pins, and use these extra fine pins. But when I take these pins out now, after having used them, you can see that there has been some fullness there, but that seam is flat and there's no puckers. So I don't know if you can see that good with the lighting. Let's see if I can. Maybe get that just a little bit closer for you to see. You can see where the pins were, but yeah, the pin trick absolutely works with getting rid of fullness. Okay, I have all of the squares put together. And as I said earlier in the video, when I was just sitting down, kind of doodling out a pattern, something I thought that would work, and I came up with this little diamond shape that I liked. I did it because I wanted to assemble it kind of like rows of color, or maybe ombre, or whatever you want to call that, with the brown on the bottom, and then the butterscotch above that, the row of dark pink above that, and then this light pink color on the top. So now that I have these 12 blocks put together, the next step is to take the three colors that go together and seam them together like this into a strip piece like this. Now, if you don't want to have the rows kind of matchy like that, and you just want to mix it up and just have the colors random, obviously that would work too. It would look a little more scrappy. But that's just something I wanted to try with this quilt. So I'm going to get these rows made, and then we'll talk about what's next. I now have all of the squares sewn into rows of light color. Let's see if I can pull this up just a little bit and you see it. So the next part would be to sew this row to this row. Now I want to take just a second and talk about pinning. Whenever you're working with this many half square triangles, this entire quilt will be made of little bitty squares. There's just a lot of seams to join, and so it would not come anywhere close to matching up the seams if I did not pin. So I know that if you're impatient like I am, the last thing you want to do is stop and do all that pinning. But if you want your seams to line up whatsoever, you really do need to pin. So the way I do that, I'm not sure if I mentioned, I think I did earlier, but just to be sure, I start pinning in the center. So I'm going to find the center seam, which is right here, and I'm going to match it to where it needs to be. Go ahead and pin that. And from there, I will start in the center and work my way out in that direction, and then I'll come back to the center and work my way out in that direction. And the reason that I do that rather than starting at the end and going all the way across is because if this top one is not the exact same size as the bottom one, and I have excess fabric to work in, then by the time I get from here to the center, I may be off quite a bit already. Whereas if I go ahead and join it at the center and work toward the ends, there's only half as much loose or small or whichever direction it goes, where you've got excess fabric or doesn't look like you have quite enough fabric on the top to work in. So I just feel like it makes it a lot easier. Now, where there's so many seams, every time you have a seam, you've got a place that you kind of start all over again. So if there's excess fabric here, once I get to a seam and past that point, I'm kind of starting fresh. But if you have a long strip of fabric where you don't have a lot of seams, you really need to kind of start in the center. And I'm just going to go ahead and do that because that's good practice and that's kind of what I do. So I'm going to pin right here. Then I'm going to pin every single seam. Now, if I didn't have so many seams, I wouldn't use so many pins, but I really do kind of want these to join up. This is a good place to say that for me, no matter how many pins I use, if you looked really closely at this, you would see so many places where the points aren't perfect. But that's okay. This quilt is not going in a quilt show. It's going in a friend's nursery, and she's not going to have a magnifying glass out or a measuring tape to see exactly how much off that point was. But if we're striving to get better and we're trying to improve our craft, then I do want to try as much as possible to get my seams to match up. So I'm going to go ahead and take the time and pin this, even though my not so patient person doesn't really want to do it. But I'm going to pin every seam, and then I'm going to sew these together. And when I get all of these sewn together and I come back, I will have a finished quilt top. And it is finished. This really didn't take that long. I would say maybe I worked on it. Well, I used one day just to do all the half square triangles. So that was probably the most time consuming part. Then I used another full day just to assemble the blocks. And then today I put all the blocks together. So really not that time consuming. I love how it turned out, but part of that is just from the fact that I love this fabric collection so much, and I'm sorry to see it gone out of my store, but this was a perfect project for using just small pieces of colored fabric that you have. And when I say small, some of these I just had just tiny amounts left, and so I really didn't know what else I could do with it, but I love how this turned out. This is a baby quilt, and it's 36 inches right now by about 48 inches. So I was thinking about maybe adding a small border to it. I think it's large enough the way it is, but I'm just not sure about that. Maybe you could leave me just a little message on this video and let me know if you think I need to add a small border or not. If I do add a border, I think I'll use this background fabric to do that, maybe just about an inch or two around. So let me know what you think about that. And I hope you've enjoyed making this quilt with me. If you could please hit that like button, I would really appreciate it. And maybe even subscribing to my channel. And pretty soon I'll see you back here again and we'll make another quilt together. Thanks.